Hey friends, before we begin this important interview with our good friend Claudio Grass about the fact that the cultural Marxists, like Soros, the Rothschilds, and their ilk, who want you and your family dead, and that's not hyperbole, stay tuned to the end where I share an article titled Killing Babies No Different from Abortion, Experts Say. It's a real article, and medical ethicists tied to Oxford University are actually making this argument. But first I want to show you guys something really cool. It's the Truth Coin series, the lowest price silver coin, and it's available only from our friends at SD Bullion. Click the banner at the top of SGT Report and check out the 2018 Tree of Life. Now you guys will remember the Roaring Lion was exclusive to SD Bullion. That coin is sold out. There was only 50,000 of them minted. The same is true with the Tree of Life. And look how beautiful this coin is. The Tree of Life inscription in Hebrew reads Yahweh, the memorial name of the one who gives true life. And the engraving reads, You shall know the truth. Well, isn't that the perfect coin for all of us, those who seek truth and those that oppose the satanic forces and the Marxist forces that have been ruling this world for far too long? Now, this Tree of Life coin, like the Roaring Lion, is exclusive to SD Bullion, and there's only 50,000 of them. And guys, just click the banner at the top of SGT Report, and you can get as many as you like at $1.49 over spot, but the more you buy, the cheaper it gets. And for those who buy 20 or more, you'll get free shipping. Just use the coupon code SGT Report when checking out. The Tree of Life is a no-brainer. You're not going to find a more beautiful government-issued coin for a lower price anywhere. Click the banner at the top of sgtreport.com and visit our friends at SD Bullion. And now, guys, I want to turn to our friend Claudio Grass to get his perspective on all things precious metals, the economy, and this problem of cultural Marxism, which is plaguing Western nations all over the world. It's great to get Claudio's viewpoint because he's in Switzerland looking back at all the craziness going on in our nation, and it's great to have him back. Claudio, welcome back.
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me. Always good talking to you.
Yeah, you know, our conversations are always fun and they flow. We're kindred spirits, and I just wanted to share this couple of tidbits with you, Claudio. You probably saw this. Another step toward collapse of the petrodollar. This was reported on Thursday from Zero Hedge. China, along with a great many other nations, are ready for this system to change and balance the economic scale. Once this problem, known as the Federal Reserve Note, is corrected, the U.S. economy will change dramatically, end quote. Wanted to start there. I actually have another one about Australia, but your thoughts on the collapse of the petrodollar. We've been talking about this for a long time. I'm seeing the signs of it. Are you?
Well, the signs are definitely there. It's visible that the U.S. is losing its empire. But of course, it's still, the biggest empire. You can find 1,000 military bases in roughly 70 nations. They still have, the world reserve currency is US dollars. The dominating currency in world trade is the US dollar. So that's still in place. Also, we have seen, over the last 10, 15 years that when it comes to world trade, that the US lost quite a big share. And since then, we basically have China and, the Eastern nations, which have compensated that and accelerated their growth. So that's the power shift. That's this geopolitical power shift that we can witness for a long time already. From east to west, and of course the same goes for gold. The gold also has gone from west to east. And now that China is planning, this trading hub in Shanghai, gold backed among the BRIC nations, that they are directly attacking the US dollar. By trading oil in renminbis in the future, which is also somehow linked to a gold backing, so you can either take the renminbis or get the gold. So that's a clear attack. That's what we have seen with Saddam Hussein. Before he was overthrown in Iraq, he wanted to trade in euros. So the Americans didn't like that. So that definitely was part of that decision, to go in there as well. At least that's from my opinion, of course. And then we had the same stories related to Libya and Gaddafi, that he also was saying, I want to create the gold dinar, and we want to free ourselves from the US dollar as the dominating currency on that continent. So that he has also been overthrown, and I think now China is doing the same, but of course they are much bigger. And at the same time, we can see that Saudi Arabia is also changing heavily. I mean, they really had a kind of coup d'etat down there, and the new guy who is now in charge. I mean, I don't know if he's going to, because the old regime basically wanted to deal with the Chinese. That's at least how it looked like. And now with the new guy, I mean, he was already visited by Trump and his team. So maybe that might change. But I think also, Saudi Arabia is a big question mark for how long they are still going to trade in US dollars, and if they will try to find also. They also see that the empire is going down, so they basically are trying to find a new orientation for the future. And that's when the Chinese, of course, coming in.
Let me ask you your thoughts on viewing President Trump from your vantage point. You know how I feel about Hillary the Witch Clinton. She should be in prison, not the Oval Office, but we're blessed she's not in the Oval Office. What is your viewpoint on Donald Trump as you see him actually creating the opportunity for peace between North and South Korea? I mean, that's a monumental geopolitical event, and it's largely ignored here in this country. Nobody wants to praise him in the mainstream media for pulling that off. But your viewpoint on President Trump from where you sit?
I remember when you had, the election ongoing over there. I wrote an article back then about the people. I was focusing on the people who votes for Trump and who votes for Clinton. And therefore, it was clear, that the establishment guys, the old guys so far, part of the deep state and all that stuff, that they basically are pro Clinton, and then you had all these, the middle class guys, the workers, who basically had enough of that constant, of the old politics of the United States. And they thought, Trump, make America great again, so that they believe that he is going to change things for the better in the future. And now I was always pro-Trump, of course, because with Clinton it was clear that which path she is going to follow, and that we're going to end up in a global. For me, Clinton is a kind of globalist, and Trump is more a nationalist.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when we see what Trump is doing, he attacked Syria, based on false claims, which was really obvious. I don't know exactly what he said. NATO needs to be shrinked. We have to get our troops home and so on. And so far, he hasn't done anything like this.
Yeah, but let me jump in, though, and point out, you may have missed this. He has since stopped the funding of the Syrian white helmets, in Syria, which is a big deal because they are the ones that are behind these repeated false flags of these chemical attacks for which Assad always gets blamed. And I think he's onto it. I mean, he may have to play ball to some degree, but the fact that he has, since this latest missile attack on Syria, the fact that he has defunded or stopped the funding for the white helmets, I do think is significant.
Well, yeah, I heard that as well. And of course, the white helmets, definitely, you're right. That's the propaganda engine of ISIS, and sponsored and financed by Western nations, but also by Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, as far as I know. They even got this the Oscar. They won a special prize in Hollywood. Trying to sell the people that picture of the white helmets, that these are the good guys. It just shows how much what the media is trying to sell us. That this wrong picture. It's all this information. How much information is wrong, and it's just a lie, and it's trying to seduce us. No, not seduce. How do you say, if you don't want to bring over the right picture?
Probably propagandize, huh?
It's not propaganda. When you try to present the wrong picture.
Well, you know what I've said a million times? Deception. But you know what I've said a million times, Claudio, is that the mainstream media is often guilty of breaking a very important commandment, and that commandment is thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. They do it time and time again, and I think they've done it ad nauseum against this president, certainly as it relates to the Russian meddling and the Trump team being in bed with the Russians to steal the election. That's all bearing false witness. It's all a lie based on the lie of the Steele dossier, which they know, and they knew that Clinton paid for it. But see, our media is so freaking corrupt in this country that it really defies belief. I didn't even think anything could be so corrupt before it would lose complete credibility and be overthrown by the people. But a lot of these people in this country still listen to CNN, believe it or not.
Yeah, this is crazy. But I mean, this is exactly, I mean, even when you look at Clinton and Trump, I mean, now we are celebrating 200 years of Karl Marx birthday. I mean, there has been a big ceremony, in Trier in Germany, where basically they inaugurated a 5.5 meter statue of Karl Marx, financed by communistic China. So I had breakfast with Václav Klaus 2 weeks ago, and he used to be, the former president of the Czechoslovakia. But he's a classic liberal, and he also divided both countries peacefully because the Slovakian wanted to split, and he also when the communistic system came down, he basically was the guy privatizing the economy by involving the people and doing a specific system how to privatize all these public companies and so on and give it into the hands of the people. So he did a pretty good job. And so when I met him for breakfast, I mean, he told me that he's going to hold a speech against Marx because he could not, I mean, he lived roughly 40 years under communism. And he was shocked to see that even, Juncker was also attending that ceremony. And so he was shocked to see that, people are celebrating Karl Marx again. And I think at the end of the day, even when we look at Clinton, I mean, that's the point, Clinton and Trump, this is still, from my point of view, it's still the constant class struggle. I mean, with Marx, it was clear you have, the industrial players were basically the oppressors, and then you had, the labor forces, the workers, they were the oppressed. And when you go in, but that has always been, the basis of that philosophy. So you have to the rule of man over rule, the rule of man over man. That has been always the dogma of Karl Marx. And now even today we see exactly the same. This constant class struggles. I mean, the classes, they just change a bit. Sometimes it can be Clinton against Trump. It can be, the banking system against the people. It can be, left against right, and so on. So the only stuff is basically to divide the people, to divide and conquer, and that's the oldest strategy. And when I look around me and when I listen to the news and all that stuff, I'm always reminded that's exactly the point.
I agree 100%. And what's funny about it? You and I both know that all of that communist manifesto stuff and the Marxism, that's all banker contrived. I mean, it's exactly what Soros wants. It's exactly what the powers that be want. They want the young people dumbed down to re-embrace these same systems that have been responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of people over the past couple of centuries. And it needs to be said, you're absolutely right. And I think you said something very interesting about Trump versus Clinton. And I think you're right. And it reminds me of Le Pen versus Macron. Clinton being the globalist, just like Macron, both of whom are Rothschild agents. Macron having actually worked for a Rothschild bank. And of course, Hillary being chummy pals with Linda Rothschild. But then standing in opposition to that in France was Le Pen, who was a nationalist, who, in my opinion, was the front runner in the race. And then Macron comes out of nowhere, a banker-manufactured candidate, and crushes her in the election and wins. So I expected the same thing to happen in this country. I thought they'd steal the election for Hillary. Somehow Trump wins it. At his rallies, 20, 30,000 people would show up at every single rally. And the point is this. So Trump gets elected instead of Clinton. And what do we see? We see Macron come and visit him at the White House. We see Merkel come and visit him. We see them both say, oh, don't dismantle this Iran deal. Trump says, we're going to do what's right for the country. Then he turns his back on the Iran deal. Same with North Korea. If Clinton was in the White House, there would be no peace on the Korean Peninsula. If Clinton was in the White House, we'd still be in the TPP. We'd still be in the Paris Accord, with the whole climate change thing, trying to deindustrialize our nation. Clinton would be targeting our Second Amendment. The white helmets would still be getting their funding in Syria. So I've seen a lot of change here in this country. A lot of people forget about these significant changes. I just sort of recapped them there. But we're seeing a lot of change in this country because Trump, a nationalist, is in the Oval Office as opposed to Clinton, the globalist. What do you make of Macron versus Le Pen and that whole situation in France? Do you think the people of France actually fell for this Rothschild agent, or do you think that election was massaged to go the way the bankers wanted it to go?
Well, Macron definitely is, is the global socialist, whatever, and Le Pen much more is, the national socialist. So there, as you mentioned before, you have those kind of different classes or groups or pressure groups. I don't know if they have been able to fake the elections over in France, but it was clear that because Trump just showed that the media is completely fake. And that's why we had these fake discussions. And the media was also fake with the Brexit, for example. But even when you look at Brexit, for example, the Queen and also Rupert Murdoch, they were both they were supporting Brexit. And in a way, when you look at this, Brexit has been a good thing, but you can also understand it as saying, okay, they had to take out the UK of the Eurozone to even further centralize the Eurozone, because they knew from the beginning if the Brits are in the Eurozone, they cannot accelerate the centralization. In a sense, they basically want to do it right now, with the fiscal union and all that stuff, and so. Therefore, I'm really, what I try to stay away is that I take over positions, that I say, hey, Putin is good, and the Americans did that wrong, and this guy reacted good, and whatever. Because at the end of the day, even when you look at Putin, he's a nationalist as well. So that's his message. We are a sovereign nation, we are Russians, we can be proud. So he's basically building that group behind himself under a nationalistic doctrine. And then, of course, you have, or when you look in the United States, when you look at the LGBT movement, for example, these are all new. You have to create new groups so that the groups start to fight each other, and to split up the people and to divide the people so that they don't start to think independently, and that they don't start to start using reason. Really try to. Reason is something which distinguishing us from an animal, and it's also reason, the rule of reason, which basically is what has been meant with the Enlightenment, 150, 200 years ago with Immanuel Kant and so on. And the Enlightenment, so the rule of reason against the rule of man over man. I think that's the point which we are still in, and that's the trap we are still in. And as long as the people just take over a different view from different groups, they will always fight each other, and they will not understand that if they would sit back and to start thinking independently for themselves, trying to grasp what's really going on, that they would come up with completely different, point of views, and that they would at least not any longer, support those class struggles which are still ongoing on, just in different colors and in different, clothes. But at the end of the day, it's still the same.
It's interesting. You mentioned the Queen, and we're talking about this class struggle. This war, this class warfare, is broadening, and now we're seeing examples of it in the real world as the elite want to ban cash. And I bring this up because this past Wednesday on Zero Hedge, it was reported that Australia is banning cash payments over $10,000 and unleashing mobile strike teams in its, quote, war on cash. I think this is absolutely outrageous. Now, keep in mind, the people of Australia have already been disarmed based on the back of a very famous false flag. They're trying to do the same to we the people in the United States, but we won't fall for it, and we certainly won't allow them to take away our Second Amendment. I think that is the line in the sand here. But let me just read this to you. As Australia struggles to maintain its unprecedented 104-quarter-long streak of uninterrupted economic growth, lawmakers are intensifying the country's war on cash, ostensibly part of a crackdown on criminal gangs that are smuggling drugs and or people, oh, that's interesting, human trafficking, that's a big problem we report on, or people into the island nation, and companies that are trying to cheat their taxes. To wit, Australia's government has introduced an economy-wide payment limit of $10,000 for transactions conducted in cash. End quote. Of course, Claudio, you know the big joke here is they're trying to sell this ban on cash to the people as a way to curb human trafficking and drug trafficking, when you and I both know it's HSBC and the big international banks that do all the money laundering for the big Mexican drug cartels. This is an outrage. Are people going to fall for this too?
Well, this cashless society, they're pushing that agenda now for a few years already. And they got quite far. It's still coming. In the Eurozone, they basically, I think Italy's down to 1,500 euros, France down to 3,000 euros, and so on. Sweden is trying. I think Sweden already lost 75% of cash. Most of it is done in credit or in credit cards. And you even find banks, they don't offer any longer cash, and you cannot even pay in normal restaurants with cash. So Sweden is the ones that are by far the most developed when it comes to that government agenda. But of course, it's bullshit. They just want to make sure that they can control everything. That everything has to go through. They want to bring all the money into the banking system. Because if there is no cash, you won't have bank runs like we have seen in the past, because that's impossible with no cash, no bank runs, because everything is digitalized. So it's really control. It's increasing their power, and that's basically why they're doing it. And when I look at Switzerland, for example, we are by far the country which is stockpiling cash, in huge amounts. I don't know how many billions we have in cash, and people took it out in the last few years, and we still have, a 1,000 Swiss franc paper note. So, Geithner and all the other guys, they wanted basically to get away from the $100 and the $50 bill, even going down to the 5 and 10s and the 20s. They really want to make sure that they can track down everything in the future, and that they have all the informations about what we are buying, what we are doing. They treat us like a machine. They also see the outcome of this planet, like the communists, as a kind of global machine. And so there, it's pretty sick.
It is, and I see the same beastly powers trying to sell this narrative to the young people, right? Cash is old and outdated. Like gold, it's a barbarous relic. Cash is dirty. Take the chip. The chip will be the way to go, because the chip, here's the awesome part about the chip, guys. If you take the chip, you're going to be able to scan to make your purchases at the store. Just scan your hand. It's so simple and it's so wonderful. And Claudio, it's what the bankers want. It's the mark of the beast system. And I think they're going to get the young people to fall for it, just like they're probably going to get the young people to fall for Marxism. And it reminds me of the old saying, those who don't remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And it's just a cycle of violence and tyranny against the people, against humanity, that these same criminal satanic bankers have been rolling out generation after generation after generation. And it's our job, people like you and me and other people in the truth media, to point this stuff out and to make sure that people don't fall for it. Unfortunately, with a complicit media on their side, it's just a tough uphill battle. This is one of the core findings also of Marxism, that you have, the past has no real value. So you have to destroy the past. You have to. That's what this Hegelian dialectic, or this dialectic materialism, or whatever. So basically, the thesis, antithesis, synthesis. So that's the constant. That's the constant path for progress and for progressivism. So you just, because what they also believed is that cause and effect are completely independent from each other. That can happen by whatever is happening. It's just it has nothing to do with a certain cause and certain stuff which is related to the cause. For them, it's completely independent, and so that's why they were saying, we destroy, build up, and then we destroy it again, and then we build up it again, and so on. And of course,
history, we don't respect what was important in the history. We have to destroy the culture. We have to destroy history. We have to destroy the family. I mean, that's all part of Marxism. That's all part also of this cultural Marxism. So that's the whole idea behind it. So as long as the people don't realize that they have to, it's so easy it's so comfortable to be a miner. And so the people have to really start thinking for themselves independently. And we have the media, the internet as the Gutenberg press. And when I look back over the last few years, I mean, hey, compare it with 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have all the information. People can make up their own mind. They can do their own research. And by doing that, they can really start, to use reason to grasp what's going on. And as soon as the reason is in power, then basically people will automatically understand that they are much better off by living after the golden rule. Because I want to live in a society where not another person is trying to kill me and steal from me and betray me at any time. It's in the nature of man, because we are a spiritual being which has the capability to think independently and to use reason to understand what's grasped. That's exactly how we have to go further, and that's why we need a kind of enlightenment 2.0. If this is not going to, and I mean, it's happening anyway. I mean, that's why we see this fake news. That's why we see these secession movements and so on. That we see, that the intellectuals of yesterday are the idiots of today. I mean, because Marxism and all that stuff. I mean, it has always been an intellectual movement. It was never a movement by the proletarians. I mean, even when you go back into history, we never had proletarians taking over any government. It was always an intellectual elite which basically did it, and we had that in 1917, with the Bolsheviks. And the Bolsheviks have been really a small amount of people who got enough fundings and weapons, basically, then to do that overthrow.
Yeah, funded by the Rothschilds.
They had. I mean, we definitely know that the Wall Street was involved. That you had the City of London was involved. That we had the Red Cross, which was also involved. The delegation which brought money over. We had, the Germans, which allowed Lenin to come by train from Switzerland through Germany into Russia, also with a stockpile of gold. I mean, so, there have been, as I said, these different groups already in the past have conspired.
Yeah, they conspire, and they conspire against humanity, and they've been doing it for centuries. And, I'm so glad we're having this conversation, because you sparked so many additional thoughts here. And I won't go on too long of a rant, but you mentioned destroying the family. That is 100% right. That is their stated goals. The Rockefeller Foundation, the Rockefeller Common Core Education Program, the separating the children from the parents. They want to destroy the families globally, because when they weaken the family system, they also weaken faith, they weaken education, they weaken sovereignty, they weaken everything important about being human is being weakened. And I think this whole LGBTQ movement is all about destroying the family. Have sex with whoever you want. Marriage is outdated. It's a barbarous relic, just like cash and gold. We see this move to destroy the family, and now we see, in real-time data, we see that in 2015 in the United States, the number of new births was down 600,000 births. And that's just with 4G. And now they want to roll out this 5G microwave weapons system, which I've come to conclude is absolutely about sterilization. It's a eugenics program. It can't be stopped. No health studies have been done. None of the dangers have been revealed through studies. They refuse to review the safety of 5G, but they're fast-tracking it. And I think it's all about destroying the family. And it's a very scary world in which we live. Are they rolling out 5G in Switzerland as well?
Well, I think 5G is I think it's also coming. And I really haven't followed that. I mean, of course, there's a lot of stuff which is damaging ourselves, and there's a lot of. I mean, I always try to focus on stuff which you have the facts in the history, and you even have government or parliament notes which is confirming that things happened in the past. I mean, also with Rockefeller, of course. I mean, they basically destroyed, the natural medicine, natural health, because they realized, hey, If we make an industry out of it, we can make a lot of money. And so that's why they have also donated. It was Rockefeller and I think Carnegie or another guy that built up the first university in Chicago for health science and all that stuff. But just to come back to your questions about the family, of course, when you look at Marxism and all these guys, the family is the Frankfurt School, the cultural Marxists from the Frankfurt School, which has been founded back in 1933 by Horkheimer, Adorno, Marcuse, and all these guys. They were saying, that the family needs to be destroyed because the German families, they were referring to Germany, of course, but they were saying the family is the core of fascism. That's where fascism starts to rise, and that's why we have to destroy the family. And of course, at the same time, all these guys, because they are so in love with power, they had a huge problem with natural authority. So that's why also, you had to destroy the picture of the father and so on, and destroy, the family as a nest of empathy where you can raise your children, where the children learn from the father and from the mother, and they see that traditional picture and so on. And I think that's all related. You have to destroy. They want to destroy that, definitely.
Yeah, they want to destroy our earthly father, these family systems, but they also want to destroy God the Father and our spiritual belief systems. Because again, now we've come full circle. The Magna Carta, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the United States, says explicitly our divine rights are given to us divinely by God, not by man, so therefore no man can take our rights away. But if they destroy the entire system, if they destroy humanity's belief in God, if they can separate humanity from God and the Creator, then they insert themselves back into the role of leaders who can take away our rights at a whim, on a moment's notice. And that's exactly what they want. This whole system we see globally is now about destroying morality and God. And I'm going to give you one more example. Richard Dawkins, who's an avowed atheist, a scientist and an avowed atheist, has recently come out and said we should take another look at the taboo of cannibalism. And then he sort of went on a mini rant about how, why do we view cannibalism as wrong? You just can't make this stuff up, Claudio. This is an absolute attack on humanity by people who are godless, in my opinion.
This is, Marxism is based on the dogma that matter creates spirit. That the Big Bang was the beginning, and so, for example, when a child is born, it's just a piece of meat. It is not conscious and it has no free will. That's the dogma of Marxism. And when you look at the guys, the doyen of the Enlightenment, which was happening at the same time or even before. Of course, for them, it was always idealism, for example, it was spirit creates matter. So meaning that when a child is born, it's conscious and it also has a free will. And so it has empathy. And that spirit, before everything becomes matter, it has always been an idea or it has been a word before it's materializing. And so even the idealists, even if they were not religious, they believed, some of them were not religious, but like Kant, for example, Kant was not a religious person, but they all believed in one divine God, which has, which is it's a loving spirit, and that's why they were also seeing human beings differently. That's why these guys believe that as long as man can use his own mind and use reason to cope with the life and what's happening and so on, this is going to lead us towards the golden age and also the golden rule. And then of course the other guys were the Marxists, which were saying no, it's just man it's just a piece of meat, and so we can by this constant class struggle we basically can breed the new communist man, which is going to establish heaven on earth. Marx was also promising heaven on earth, man-made, and I think that's for me. This is one of the most fundamental questions every person has to think about once at least. What is spirit creating matter, or is it the other way around? And if you believe in spirit, then you believe in love, then you believe in empathy, then you believe in reason, then you see the potential behind human beings, that they have to, that because of reason, they will develop in the right direction. And of course, if you're an evil guy, then you have only, then you look at the matter, or that you have, you are also, you love power, because matter reflects, we have both in us. We are spiritual, we consist of spirit and body. And spirit and matter at the end of the day. And I think that's really one of the most fundamental questions. And all the communists and all the people who believe that man has to rule over man, they definitely don't believe in God. They just believe in this kind of Karl Marx dogma, and they just see, for them also, because the way they look at the human being is that, maybe that's, maybe human beings are just too stupid, that they cannot comprehend, they are, they're stupid. They most likely, if you don't watch over them, then they will start killing each other the next day. That's the way they look at, so it's the picture they draw when they look at man, and so from the materialistic side, it's definitely a bad one, and it's addressing greed, power, lust, all that kind, which that's what they are addressing. Also, when you go deeper into that topic, and then of course when you have the spiritual side, then it's more about the enlightenment, and that's why they also are completely, spiritual side is for free speech. The only way people can enlighten themselves is by using their own mind and talk about whatever they want to think, whatever they want to talk about. If they only have the possibility to talk to each other, they are going to learn automatically. And the guys who come up with fake or with horrible argumentations, they're going to lose anyway over time. And the good ideas, it's the competition of the better ideas. And so the enlightenment and the open and free speech is bounded with each other. And then on the other side, you have Marxism, naturalism, with all those, you're not allowed to think like this, you're not allowed to think like that, because at the end of the day, they want to produce a reciproc human being by this constant class struggle, and also at the same time by using political correctness to guide, to come up with this thought control at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I want to just come full circle here. We'll wrap up this conversation, but you mentioned the cultural Marxists at the Frankfurt School vowing to destroy the family. And, here's where this godlessness takes us, guys. I mentioned Richard Dawkins. Let me just quote this. I found the article here. Atheist Richard Dawkins wants to eat the most dangerous game. This came from The Independent, in which the outspoken critic of intelligent design and creationism tweeted about an article about lab-grown meat, along with some questions. He said, "Tissue culture, clean meat, already in 2018. I've long been looking forward to this. What if human meat is grown? Could we overcome our taboo against cannibalism?" Now, here's where this leads us, folks. Here's an article that I have from The Telegraph. Its title is this. This is not The Onion. This is a real article. "Killing Babies, No Different from Abortion, Experts Say." Let me read one paragraph. "Parents should be allowed to have their newborn babies killed because they are, quote, morally irrelevant, and ending their lives is no different to abortion," a group of medical ethicists linked to Oxford University has argued. You cannot make this up, and it is exactly where we're headed if we don't put an end to all of this godlessness in the satanic system, because that's exactly what I just read, Claudio, is satanic, pure and simple.
No, this is definitely, this is shocking. This is just really shocking. But it's, as I said, for these guys, man is just a piece of meat, so it has no spirit, it has no reason. You can play around with it, and you can breed it. You can raise the child and breed the child in a way. So it's at the end of the day, we will become everyone becomes the same, and everyone is going to react in the way that he is expected to react, and that will lead to this. Everyone owns everything. So that's the Marxist agenda, and I think you can go into nationalism, you can go into transgenderism and all that stuff. I mean, it's all those mascot groups of. At the end of the day, it's always the same game. It's the oppressor and the oppressed, and you just change the names a bit. But as long as people react to this, then we are in that constant struggle, and we're not going to raise into a higher sphere, and we don't then we don't realize what they're trying to play, and how they abuse basically our individual private lives for their agenda.
Yeah, and as the old saying goes, I mean, for me personally, as it relates to a belief in God, God of the Bible, the old saying goes, if you don't believe in something, you'll fall for anything, which is how they can get away with publishing articles like the Killing Babies article I just read, which is how they can get away with Dawkins talking about cannibalism, which is how they can get away with their human sex trafficking and the Pizzagate, Pedogate. This whole thing is now being revealed, and people who are on the side of God are appalled, and people who are godless, well, they don't really have a line in the sand, right? They don't have, necessarily speaking, many of them don't have a moral line in the sand. And those that get persuaded to be tipped into Satanism, well, then they're lost. They're completely lost. I'll tell you, Claudia, I just wanted to share that with you because we are being bathed in a waterfall of lies in this country and globally on a daily basis. And people like you in the alt media stand in opposition to it. So thank God you're out there. Can you shout out your website for people that might want to do business with you, buy some gold, buy some silver?
Yeah, sure. So they will find me under www.claudiograss.ch. They can shoot me a mail, whatever. I mean, I'm always going to reply, and that's where they find me.
Okay, Claudio. And do you just want to shout out your email as well?
The email is cg@claudiograss.ch.
Okay, and guys, you can find that on his website as well, claudiograss.ch. Claudio, thanks so much. We went kind of long here, but I always have such interesting conversations with you. That comes as no surprise, and there's so much going on in the world. It's hard to pick and choose what to cover, but I really appreciate your time and your perspective. Thank you.
Same for me. Thank you very much, Sean. Always good talking to you. Take care.
Yeah, thank you, and take care. And guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you who are still with us after I got a little bit long-winded, thanks so much. We appreciate your support. And visit us for real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com. God bless.
The 9/11 operation was a military operation disguised as a terror operation. When you understand that, it's far, far beyond the ability of anything like Osama bin Laden. 9/11 was carried out on deception. It's all like a stage magician's trick.